Your roadmap to the latest in auto. Welcome to Highway Herald. Today, we're diving into Chevrolet's unraveling on its own turf, a saga of tariffs, fragile supply chains, and fierce global rivals. Once the pride of American driveways, Chevrolet now faces mounting losses, shaken communities, and political headwinds. What was once a badge of resilience has slipped into decline. Buckle up as we break down the perfect storm that forced Chevy out of its homeland. Chevrolet's assembly lines fall silent. Chevrolet's retreat from America didn't arrive with fanfare, it arrived with silence. The once busy Lordstown plant in Ohio shut its doors, followed by Detroit Hamtramck and Warren Assembly, erasing decades of sedan dominance. What had been anchors of middle-class life collapsed almost overnight. Diners that thrived on shift crowds emptied, schools funded by union wages struggled, and local sports teams lost their supporters. For generations, Chevrolet was the everyman's brand. The Impala for families, the Volt as an EV pioneer, the Cruze for efficiency. Their disappearance wasn't just about sales, it fractured American culture. Even the Silverado, Chevrolet's iconic truck, revealed how global its DNA had become, with vital parts sourced abroad despite the Chevy Tough badge. Executives described the strategy as portfolio optimization. Workers called it layoffs. Families felt the pain in lost wages, foreclosures, and moving vans. Once a symbol of stability, Chevrolet's decline became a cautionary tale of globalization, tariffs, and shifting strategies reshaping America's automotive identity. But the closures weren't the only blow. Tariffs soon made Chevrolet's decline even more painful. The tariff price tag hits Chevrolet hard. Tariffs designed to protect American automakers ended up hitting Chevrolet the hardest. Trump's 25% duties on cars and parts gutted GM's profits, wiping out $1.1 billion in a single quarter, a staggering 32% plunge. Because Chevrolet relied heavily on global supply chains, the impact cut deeper than for its rivals. The Trailblazer, imported from Korea, suddenly faced price hikes of nearly $6,000. Cross-border models like the Equinox and Traverse became overnight liabilities. GM chose to shield customers by holding sticker prices steady, but that sacrifice drained billions from the bottom line. Investors reacted swiftly, driving GM stock down more than 7% in a single day. Even Chevrolet's proud symbol, the Silverado, wasn't immune. Its brake systems from Mexico and electronics from Japan turned every shipment into another tariff bill. Families hesitated to buy, dealers scrambled with incentives, and headlines warned of rising costs. The irony was brutal. Tariffs meant to protect Chevrolet's American roots instead accelerated its decline, exposing the fragility of GM's volume brand. And before we go deeper into the supply chain storm, make sure you subscribe to Highway Herald. Your support keeps these stories rolling and fuels our passion to bring you the latest in auto. Now let's move forward, because tariffs were just the beginning. Chevrolet's fragile web of supply. Chevrolet's strength once rested on its global supply chain, a Traverse stamped in Canada, stitched in Mexico, wired in Korea, and proudly sold in U.S. showrooms. But when tariffs hit, that efficiency quickly turned fragile. In Silao, Mexico, where Chevrolet pickups were assembled, $5 an hour workers demanded raises as costs rose, only to be told tariffs tied GM's hands. In Oshawa, Canada, lines fell silent. In Tennessee's Spring Hill plant, home to crossovers and EVs, shutdowns became routine. Even Chevrolet's Bolt EV, once hailed as the brand's electric future, was bogged down by delays and shortages linked to tariff complications. Suppliers across the chain suffered. Major Tier 1 companies pushed higher steel and aluminum costs back to GM, while smaller Tier 2 suppliers folded under the volatility. A single missing harness could paralyze thousands of units, bleeding millions daily. By 2025, workers in both Mexico and Michigan were asking the same painful question. If tariffs were meant to protect jobs, why were Chevrolet towns paying the price? Faced with collapsing supply lines, GM had to find a new strategy, and that meant reinventing Chevrolet's very playbook. Chevrolet bets on profit before volume. GM's survival strategy demanded a reinvention of Chevrolet. CEO Mary Barra introduced a new mantra: prioritize profit over volume. Instead of chasing sales at all costs, Chevrolet would lean on its strongest performers, even if it meant sacrificing breadth. The counterpunch relied on Chevrolet's core profit engines, the Silverado pickup and full-size SUVs like the Tahoe and Suburban. These models could absorb tariff pressures while still delivering margins. GM invested heavily at home, expanding Texas and Indiana plants and pledging $4 billion to boost U.S. capacity. By 2027, the Blazer and Equinox were slated to return to American assembly lines, reinforcing the Made in USA promise. But sacrifices were unavoidable. Sedans like the Cruze and Impala disappeared, narrowing affordable options. EV ambitions slowed, the Bolt was paused, and the Equinox EV rollout scaled back amid fading tax credits. GM also ended its Honda-Acura EV partnership to free capacity for Chevrolet's needs. This leaner, truck and SUV-heavy lineup risks ceding innovation headlines to rivals like Tesla and Hyundai. Still, the gritty shift underscores Chevrolet's reality: survival before glory. Yet survival in America is only part of the story. Chevrolet's global future faces an even steeper climb. Regional strongholds and rising global rivals. Chevrolet's future won't be shaped by one global vision but by regional battlefields. The days of building a single model for all markets are gone. Tariffs and trade wars have forced a local-for-local approach. Chevrolet's built in America for Americans, in China for Chinese buyers, and in Latin America for local demand. At home, moving Blazer and Equinox production back to U.S. plants strengthens Chevrolet's Made in America story, a selling point dealers will proudly emphasize. Abroad, though, challenges mount. Ford's F-Series dominates. Stellantis sharpens Jeep's global reach. Hyundai invests heavily in U.S. battery hubs, and China floods emerging markets with affordable EVs, squeezing Chevrolet's once solid footing. Regionalization also reshapes the lineup. In the U.S., fortress products like the Silverado and Suburban anchor sales. EVs must be cautiously paced. Oversupply risks losses, undersupply risks relevance. Meanwhile, Chinese EVs undercut Chevrolet in Latin America and Africa. Policy remains the great wild card. In this uncertain landscape, the quickest to adapt, not the largest, will win. For Chevrolet, survival is the true race. Which brings us to the bigger question: what does Chevrolet's fight really say about America's auto industry? Verdict: the unfinished road for Chevrolet and GM. Chevrolet's decline is more than a brand struggle. It's a warning for the entire U.S. auto industry. Tariffs meant to protect manufacturing instead drained GM of billions, fractured supply chains, and left communities hollow. Mary Barra's $4 billion reinvestment in U.S. plants shows resilience, but also how fragile the industry becomes when politics and markets collide. The challenges ahead are steep: EV uncertainty, fierce competition from Toyota, Hyundai, and Tesla, and China's global expansion. Chevrolet may survive by focusing on profits and embracing its American-made identity, but its future remains uncertain. The next 5 years will decide not just Chevrolet's fate, but America's manufacturing backbone. Do you think GM's profit-first strategy will save Chevrolet? Should Chevy push trucks or EVs? Are tariffs saving or sinking American jobs? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective. If you've been following this breakdown of Chevrolet's battle for survival, don't forget to subscribe to Highway Herald to get notified about the next big vehicle updates and the twists shaping our automotive future. Thanks for watching and see you next time. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's more exciting and informative content waiting for you.